Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with a video on round 5 of the FIDE Grand Swiss with places in the 2022 Candidates Tournament up for grabs in both the Open and Women's section. We're going to look at the standings later, but first I will show you the game from Fabiano Caruana from the USA with white and David Howell from England behind the black pieces. Caruana said he was disappointed in the opening. Well, let's listen to the American Grandmaster explaining why he was disappointed.
Well, I was a bit disappointed because he seemed to know the line really well. But at some point he started to tank, and I figured that he was getting increasingly uncomfortable with the position, which is not a bad position for him. It's just very complicated, and it's difficult to find the right way for black.
So let's look at the game. Caruana was white and opened with e4. Fabiano Caruana is 29 years old and his rating is exactly 2800. Howell answered with e5. David Howell is 30 years old and his rating is 2658. And we see the Ruy Lopez on the board and Howell plays the Berlin. If you castle here, that is the most popular move that can lead to the famous or infamous Berlin endgame. Vladimir Kramnik's weapon with black when he beat Garry Kasparov in the year 2000 to become the 14th world champion. In this game, Caruana played d3, the anti-Berlin move. Here d6 is the main move, but bishop c5 is also very popular. c3, both players castled. d6 and bishop g5, quite a sharp line. Knight bd2 is the alternative, which is more quiet. But bishop g5 was played, that bishop was kicked back and kicked back again. And now knight h5. White developed the queen's knight and queen f6. White wants to push d4 and e5 and first removes the defender from these squares to make the push in the center possible. So Caruana took on c6. b takes and now we can push that pawn. E takes and e5. Both players were still blitzing out their moves, they both knew this line quite well. You can take on e5, but queen g7 was Howell's move, and c takes d4 takes the pawn back, attacking the bishop. The bishop brought back a4, threatening a5 to win that bishop, so Howell played a5, and both players, as I said, had played quite quickly up to here, but for his next three moves Howell spent an hour. Knight c4 was played by Caruana and bishop a6 was looked at in a live broadcast, but Howell decided on bishop e6. Rook c1 and knight takes g3. At this point Caruana had only used up time to write down his moves. Howell was now down more than an hour on the clock. Caruana took back with the h-pawn. And let's listen to Fabiano Caruana explaining what all these yellow arrows are about.
And he shouldn't take on c4. This is just a very bad positional decision because after that, if he ever plays g4, my knight on h4 can suddenly jump to f5. And if he has this bishop, then I don't have this option. So my knight gets sort of relegated on h4. So he should have played g4, knight h4, and there's probably various moves here which he can play. But after bishop c4, I think I don't know if it's losing, but it's at least super unpleasant.
So Howell took on c4 here, and that is a mistake. As Caruana explained, black will need to retain that bishop so that when he plays g4, he's controlling the f5 square, so that the knight cannot jump there very easily and will be relegated on h4, as Caruana explained. So g4 is the move here, knight h4, and that knight cannot go to f5. But Howell took on c4, and this move and Caruana's reply was caught live in the broadcast. Let's have a look. This was a crucial moment in this game. Caruana recaptured on c4 and he described the position as very unpleasant for black. Rook a8 and rook e1. This position is borderline winning, was Caruana's assessment during the game, and the engine agrees with him, which means that we can all agree with him. At this moment, Caruana had already seen that the endgame, which we'll see on the board very soon, is winning for white. Let's hear Caruana explain this.
And rook e1 was, I think, a good move. I spent a bit of time to... It's not the most natural move because the most natural thing is to get the queen out of the way, like queen c2. But then he plays c5 and he sort of gets some counterplay. Well, in the game he just... I mean, I guess he shouldn't play rook e8 because that just looks losing. But I don't know what he should do. I thought that the position is borderline winning after rook e1.
Caruana mentioned queen c2 as the most natural move, but then with c5 black will get counterplay. And that's why after rook a d8, with the rook vis-a-vis with the white queen, he played rook e1 instead. Rook fe8, e takes d6, a pair of rooks was swapped, and Howell took back with the rook. You can take with the pawn, but then there is rook takes c6 winning a pawn. And after rook takes d6, Caruana also took on c6. That's a small combination, winning a pawn. If you put the video on pause here and visualize how Caruana will win the rook back if Howell takes the rook on c6, then you can try to solve that little puzzle. And while you're pondering that, let's listen to Caruana one more time, explaining that black can regain the pawn, but will end up in a very bad endgame.
When I played rook e1, right, it was kind of critical to... Because rook e8 is the most logical move. It was sort of critical to look at this rook takes c6, and I'm a pawn up, but he very often regains the pawn on d4. And he can even do it immediately by rook c6 g4. But his problem is that even after he gets this pawn, he's left with basically a wreck of his pawn structure. a5 is often falling, and the other pawns are also very weak. So that combined with the fact that my king is almost always extremely safe from any checks on either g1 or h2 means that it's pretty much a hopeless position.
As we heard Caruana explain, you can play g4 here. It wasn't played. Rook takes d6, c takes d6. The knight is attacked, goes to h4, and then indeed black can regain the pawn. But as Caruana explained, the a5 pawn is often falling off the board, and black has other weak pawns in his camp as well. And also it is important that white's king is quite safe. With the queens on the board, that is an important factor. But after rook takes c6, Howell decided not to play g4. He took that rook, winning a rook. But I'm sure you have worked out that with a simple double attack, white regains the rook. King h7, queen takes rook, and white is a pawn up. Queen g6, offering a trade of queens. Caruana did not go for that, played queen d7. King to g7, knight e5 hitting the queen. Queen went to e6, and now Caruana thought it was time to swap the queens. Queen takes, f takes, and knight c4. The king went to f6. Caruana correctly evaluated that the king and pawn endgame is winning for him. He took the bishop, recapture, and g4. Not the only winning move, but very instructive, keeping the black pawn where it is. e5, that pawn was swapped. g3, king d4. Another pawn move from Caruana, and king d5. And after making this move on move 34, David Howell resigned the game. He saw that this is an easily lost king and pawn endgame for him. Let's show one example why it is so easy to win this king and pawn endgame. f5 can be played. A protected pass pawn is what white has. King e5, you have to stay close to that pawn. Then king f2, king d5, black can only wait. King e3, king e5. Does black have the opposition? Yes, he does, but it doesn't matter. King d3, king d5, and now a little move b3, giving the move back to black. King e5, there's nothing else, and then king c4, and also you and I can win this position against David Howell. White is going to clean up the queen side, and there's nothing black can do about it, as he can't move too far away from white's f-pawn. And the desperate h6, h5 does not work either. White just takes it, king takes, king b5 going after the queenside pawns, g4, king takes b6, and before black has cleaned up the king side, there will be a new queen on a8. This was an important win for Caruana. As he explained after the game, he expects that the tournament will be won with a very high score. So it is important to win games to stay in touch with the leaders. Let's have a look at the standings after round 5 with 6 more rounds to go. We have 3 leaders in the open section with 4 points out of 5 games. Alireza Firouzja, Yevgeny Nair and good old Alexei Shirov, who played in the World Championship cycle back in 1998 when he beat Vladimir Kramnik to qualify for a match against Kasparov, a match he never got. Kramnik did get a match and he beat Kasparov. It would be quite something if Shirov would make the Candidates tournament once again. 14 players are half a point behind, you can see the names there, and Fabiano Caruana is one of them, we just saw his game. In the women's section there are 5 leaders: Nino Bashiashvili, Elizabeth Petz, Zhu Lei and Jolanta Zawadzka have 4 points out of 5 games. 4 players are half a point behind. Round 6 will be played on Monday the 1st of November and I will be here after the round to tell you what happened. I hope you like this video and that you'll keep following the FIDE Grand Swiss with me. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel and please leave a comment. I will read them all and I will reply to them all. If you like the video, it would be great if you could share it on social media by clicking the share button on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram, on Twitter and on Facebook. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.